more CarPlay discussion, and a fake photo of the Pope. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Zocdoc, the only free app that lets you find and book doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. Find out more at Zocdoc.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, the MacVoices Live panel finishes up a conversation about General Motors, Google, and CarPlay, and then we take a look at a fake generative AI-created picture of the Pope and what it should tell us about seeing is believing. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking. Brian?
Oh, I was just thinking too, here we are talking about Chevy and this decision, this policy decision. What if, for example, one or two, three other big manufacturers get on board and kind of do the same thing? And then it's kind of like, where do you go? Maybe there'll be the holdout company that strikes a great deal with Apple, but then it'll kind of be, such a niche market of saying, maybe it's say Hyundai or Kia or whatever. It's like, okay, do you love your CarPlay that much to specifically always buy that particular brand and not look at the others just because of CarPlay? Where right now it's everyone but GM, maybe Tesla as well.
I think that's the point when Project Titan drops.
Well, I don't know about that, but remember, we're also it'd be one thing if GM was saying we're going to develop the whole stack, and we're going to make software, which I don't think they could do, but no,
we've seen them try it before.
They're getting in bed with GM. GM, Google, right? So when you talk about other manufacturers, following along, you think all these other manufacturers want to all get in bed with Google? I'm not so sure, other manufacturers are going to be, it could be that GM does this and Google winds up the winner and GM winds up screwed no matter, even if they do it and somewhat pull it off. Now they're beholden to Google.
It does set up a point of differentiation for various manufacturers that, okay, we're going to offer this because, it wasn't that long ago, or maybe I'm just old, but it wasn't that long ago that, there were companies that were advertising Harman Kardon sound systems and Bose sound systems and, as differentiating points. Now, did anybody actually buy a car for the sound system? Nobody that I know, but this just feels like it takes it to another degree. I
think this is way different than a sound system.
Yeah.
Well,
the sound systems are different in very minor degrees, but being able to use your phone for there's all these apps. There are CarPlay apps now. I can have podcast apps on there, and I can have Waze, and I can, that's not Harman Kardon versus JBL. That's huge.
I think. Oh, Jeff, go.
I fear that GM is thinking that people, at the end of the day, aren't going to care that much about what software is running in their car. And before we had the whole CarPlay thing, how many people knew or cared what kind of software was running on their car? And the answer is that they didn't.
Because there was no software running in the car.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of software running in the car.
There was no user-facing software.
Right. And, there was because, like Jim, you and I, we have user-facing software in our Priuses because we have a touchscreen interface that lets us do certain things in our car. What operating system is running that? What software is it? We don't know. And at the time, we didn't care. Apple changed that for us.
The other thing,
I'm not sure that didn't care is completely right. Did it have capacitance or resistive touchscreen? And, definitely
most people
different
have no
navigation
idea what that
systems.
even means. So,
mean,
okay, Jim, you and we cared. I think the average consumer didn't care and didn't even think about the fact that
Cars are
there's software.
big purchases. You know,
Yeah,
after a
yes.
house, it's the biggest purchase that people make, and they spend a huge amount of time in their cars. I just don't think they're as cavalier, and especially if they've gotten used to, I can just plop my phone in, and now you're mostly getting wireless CarPlay, and boom, all my contacts come up, my playlists come up, my favorite destinations come up, and I can do those on my phone in my house, and then when I pop in the car, boom, that's all there. You think, how many people, 10, 20 million people at least now, or maybe 50 million people have already experienced that, and then they're going to get in another car that doesn't do that, and they're going to be like, oh well, I don't really care. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think there's one major difference here. 10 years ago, when CarPlay first started, we were really still in the quote unquote MP3 era, where most music we had on our devices was either ripped or purchased from a music store. We're in the streaming subscription era. I mean, if GM has a car that doesn't have Apple Music, I can't use my Apple Music subscription through Google Play Music or Spotify. That's
and another aspect
what if they
of
sell
this,
you GM tunes?
This, but this, well, I don't want that. And the other thing is, this car is going to have LTE in it, right, or whatever. It's going to have its own. It's going to have its own cellular connection, which means you're going to have to pay for another cellular account. Well, people are going to notice that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
CarPlay hijacks.
Yeah.
CarPlay just uses the monthly cellular subscription you've already got, but if you divorce the phone from it, then and some cars have that already. They do have LTE, but it's not really common. And
well, Jim, what if they do a thing when you pair your phone so that you can have your Bluetooth connection for hands-free calling? If the car just piggybacks onto the cellular connection in the phone and uses that.
But they can't do that, because what if you don't have a phone? That's basically the point of this, that they want to control that if they're routing it through something else. And then imagine the support nightmare of that.
That's a big one, Jim.
That's a good point. Okay, they could do something where it has its own cellular connection, but then when you connect your phone, if your phone's available, it will grab that instead of using theirs, so you're paying for it through your phone. Well, unless they're just making you pay for the connection, because that's what
their goal is. They want you to pay them. They want you to pay them for that.
Yeah, well, if you're paying for the services, maybe the connection is rolled in, like what Amazon has always done with Kindle. You don't have to have Wi-Fi to download books, but you're not paying for a separate cellular connection, even though it's built into the Kindle.
I think the cars will have to have active cellular all the time, whether you're paying for it or not, because otherwise they can't collect any of that data that they're picking up.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's
their goal is to try and get as many of their customers to pay for the cellular data that they're using to collect information on you.
Yep. Also, modern cars are more a smart device with wheels than a traditional vehicle, so they do have to have that cellular connection for constant updates.
And if we get to the point that we have self-driving cars, they're going to have to be communicating with, a command and control place, a location, as well as potentially communicating with each other.
And that will probably be a cellular connection.
So, yeah. Hey, I'm going to move us on a little bit, but I do want everyone who hears this discussion to go to your local GM dealer and pitch a fit, and because that's the way we're going to get this thing reversed. Is just walk in and say, "You're not going to support CarPlay. I'm going elsewhere."
Or you could just write GM themselves and not pester people trying to make a living.
No, Ben. You know what? I'm only half serious and only half kidding. But I think they're going to listen to dealers a lot sooner. You're only going to buy one car, but a dealer is buying a whole lot of cars from GM, and so they're going to have a bigger voice. Just like the TV affiliates, with the networks, they have a bigger voice than just, one or two of us. So today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Zocdoc. Find local doctors who take your insurance at Zocdoc.com/MacVoices. When someone is just exceptionally good at what they do, it could be a waiter, it could be a chef, it could be a doctor. You're in good hands. It's like seeing a waiter balance 5 trays of sizzling fajitas on one arm. You're confident in them. When you find the right doctor, you can feel it. You feel heard and at ease. On Zocdoc, finding the doctor that's right for you is seamless. The quality care you need is just a few taps away in the Zocdoc app. Zocdoc is the only free app that lets you find and book doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, are available when you need them, and treat almost every condition under the sun. No more doctor roulette or scouring the internet for questionable reviews. With Zocdoc, you have a trusted guide to connect you to your favorite doctor you haven't met yet. Millions of people use Zocdoc's free app to find and book a doctor in their neighborhood who is patient-reviewed and fits their needs and schedule just right. Go to Zocdoc.com/MacVoices and download the Zocdoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/MacVoices. Zocdoc.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Zocdoc for supporting this week's MacVoices. I think I hope I didn't just cite a riot. It did not incite a riot.
I think the dealers already, the people at dealers are already imagining trying to sell cars that don't have CarPlay, especially high-end cars. As somebody pointed out, you're going to start with electric cars. That's the high end. That's just going to be a nightmare for the dealers.
Yeah. So who saw the photo of the Pope in the big white puffy coat?
I love that photo.
Okay.
I don't think I did.
So, you didn't? Oh, okay.
After you shared the article, I did.
Yeah. Go and look at that. And
maybe I did see that, but it didn't really mean anything to me. What does it mean?
Well, it's completely fake. That's the thing. I just threw 2 articles here in our private chat. And obviously, folks, all these links will be in the show notes for the episodes. But the one shows the Pope in the white puffer coat. And also the other one is a discussion of the company that publishes Midjourney, the graphics software that was used to create the image. And a couple of the articles I saw, they tore it apart because if you zoom in real close, you can see that the hands aren't right, and that I think there was a cross or a medal hanging around the Pope's neck that wasn't quite, proper. But if you took a casual look at this on social media, there was no question that's the Pope in a big white puffer coat.
Chuck, my favorite part of this story is not that people were duped by an AI generated image of the Pope in a puffy jacket. It's that the guy that made the image did it as a joke while he was tripping on mushrooms. He had no idea this was going to be the thing that it became.
Oh, I missed that part. I hadn't even heard that.
Yeah, he was interviewed. I forgot who interviewed him, but he was like, "Yeah, I totally made that. I was tripping on mushrooms."
Eric, you said that you found the discussion about detecting it interesting.
Yeah, the whole discussion about the AI generated images, especially with people in it, looking at fingers that aren't complete, fingers that are hands that don't have the right numbers of fingers, that
They
kind of
bend
thing.
the wrong directions. And
that was really kind of interesting. And since then, as people have said, "Oh, this is a generated image," or "This is fake," that kind of thing has been pretty much true. They haven't figured out how to generate fingers correctly. I just found that kind of an interesting thing to look at. I imagine at some point they will start, covering that with basic internet hygiene classes in school, where they, say when a picture shows up, count the fingers and don't respond to email and don't give out your social security number. It's just going to be sort of a basic component. It just keeps evolving.
So all of a sudden, the live long and prosper symbol is going to take on a whole new meaning. I guess the point for me here was that, the detection was interesting, but just how many people went wild over this and didn't, they never even questioned it. And to your point, Eric, this is now, but what's it going to be in 12 months, 18 months as the software improves? I mean, it's no longer is a picture going to be proof of much of anything.
I mean, we have
didn't we get there like a long time? I thought we got to that point a while ago.
Yeah, thanks, Photoshop.
Yeah. I mean, we have deepfake technology that is so good that LucasArts hired a single guy to do Luke Skywalker in a way that all of their people, all their high-priced, state-of-the-art technology could not. I mean, we have to deal with the fact that we're going to be dealing with fakes that are very believable. I mean, if you don't look at this very, very closely, you can be fooled by it quite easily.
Sure. Again, how many people are going to take the time to look at, are the fingers right? And are there all this, they just look and, okay, the Pope was cold. They gave him a big white puffer jacket. I mean, makes perfect sense. So, I agree with you.
So there's not, in this case, there's not really high stakes. It's like, well, who cares if he wears a puffer jacket or not? So, the problem is going to be in something where there's some actual stakes.
Yeah. Right. And that's why I love this, because you're right, Jim, there are no high stakes to this other than, maybe for some of the outdoor companies. But beyond that, this was completely frivolous. What happens when it's serious?
Mm-hmm. I think it's good that we're having
people will count the fingers more carefully.
Yeah. Ben?
I think it's good that we're having this discussion on something with zero stakes. So we don't have to have it. Well, we're going to have it again, but it keeps us mindful for when this does happen on something that's important.
Agreed.
Jeff, the issue is it's becoming less expensive to do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it used to take a lot of talent. And it's going to take less and less talent.
Yeah, Jeff, you were trying to get in there too.
Oh, yeah. The whole thing about it's a problem that people aren't going to be looking at these images critically. That's been a problem for us for a long time. Most people, not only do they not look, but they don't know what to look for in a photoshopped image. So maybe there's this photo of the mountains, and I Photoshop Jim into it, so it looks like he's on this hike in the Rockies with me, and people don't know to look for the artifacting around around Jim, or the fact that the shadows on our faces are the opposite directions. The lighting is wrong. I mean, there's the coloring is wrong. There's so many things that make up an image that's done incorrectly, and it's fast and easy to do. People don't know. They don't know what to look for, and they will see these things, and they just take them as fact. An example, I saw a couple days ago a group of AI generated images. This person did a whole photo series about taking infants skydiving, and the comments on this photo set, people were flipping out. I mean, how can you do that? These babies don't even have helmets on, and this is completely unsafe. And some of these babies are being dropped out of planes with parachutes, and there's not even another person with them, and just on and on. And I'm looking at the images, and I'm like, okay, this one's just uncanny valley. This one, the baby has fingers growing out of the back of its hand, and I could just go down the images and look at them, and I'm like, yeah, these are obviously all AI generated. And they're really funny because I know they're AI generated. But other people were having serious emotional meltdowns over this.
Have you ever been on Nextdoor?
Yeah.
I do not go on Nextdoor anymore at all for anything because
I got off a quick.
Yeah. I do not need that level of toxic negativity in my life.
Well, but it's not just a question of that. It's a question of, like you said, of people believing anything.
Yeah.
And not thinking critically. I mean, that's, they don't need AI generated images to not think critically. They will not think critically, full stop. How about,
and Jim, to your point earlier too, I mean, we've had Photoshop and we've had airbrushing, the whole way back to the 60s with Playboy, that, the images that you were seeing were gorgeous.
There wasn't any airbrushing in Playboy. Come on.
I'll go back and do research, Jim. But, no, seriously, I mean, there's always been a desire to enhance images, and we just now have it at a whole new level. And now you're going to have to be even more critical in looking at things. And Jeff, your point's well taken. I mean, maybe that's a topic we should cover at some point, is, all the things you need to look for if you're trying to determine whether an image is accurate or not. Because most of us would do just what a lot of those people did. They jump in because we know people are crazy and say, oh my God, how could you do this? Just like believing that the Pope was wearing a white puffer jacket.
Right.
Next time on MacVoices, our conversation about photo manipulation wraps up with a classic example that predates any AI. Then we take a look at some of Google's failures and what it says about why you should rely on them or shouldn't rely on them for their services. That's next time on MacVoices. I'll see you then. As always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.